Welcome back to the Center in the City podcast, a space to pause, breathe, and come back to yourself, even in the middle of a full and busy life. I'm your host, Wade Brill, and in each episode, we explore mindfulness for real life, simple practices, reflections, tools to help you feel grounded, present, and connected to what matters most to you. So let's settle in and let's get centered. Welcome back to the Center in the City podcast. I'm your host, Wade Brill, and I am so glad you are here. Today's solo episode is all about how can we deeply be excited about somebody else. Maybe it's somebody new that we're dating. Maybe we're in a long-term relationship or marriage. How can we stay excited about this other person in our life, this romantic partnership, without making them the center of your world? So it's this balance of how do we stay deeply connected to ourselves while we're building this deeply connected relationship to somebody else. I'm so passionate about this topic because not only have I experienced it in my years prior to meeting my husband in dating, but then even with my husband and us being married in this cycle and season we go through where we can be so attached and connected that sometimes I feel like I can lose myself. And so how important it is that I've learned years over years to keep prioritizing, keep dating myself, keep making space for myself so that I can show up in my relationship fully, so that I can feel deeply present with my husband, but without making him my entire world. So if you are somebody that is just starting to date in a relationship and you're feeling it getting hot and heavy and start to feel that tension and like one foot in your life and one foot in this shared life that you're creating with somebody, and just that kind of gray space that feels exciting and also a little anxiety provoking because you're like, what? Like, where am I putting my focus right now? I just feel so love drunk all the time. Or maybe you're in a longer term relationship and you're noticing like, oh, wow, there's some moments when I've kind of lost myself. Like I've lost what brings me joy or what are the activities that I want to prioritize. Leave this episode with insight about your own relationships, wherever they are, whatever status they're in, and most importantly, some practices and some insights of how to come back to yourself, how to keep dating yourself so that you can maintain the most important relationship, which is the one with yourself, while you also get to build an amazing relationship with somebody else. Whether you're listening to this podcast on a walk, cooking in the kitchen, commuting, or chilling in your home, I welcome you to settle in and let's get centered. Have you ever started to date somebody? Maybe think back to years prior or a recent relationship, or maybe it's just a specific stage in your long-term relationship that you're in, where you're dating someone that you really, really like, and suddenly you start to feel like your whole life is revolving around them. You keep checking your phone, looking for their text messages. Maybe you notice your sleep schedule starts to shift based on their rhythm, or your schedule starts to bend around theirs when they like to eat dinner or when they come home from work. You tend to cancel plans because you want to make sure you're being available for this person. Maybe your friends start to hear less from you. You're willing to go out less and try new things. Maybe you stop working on your hobbies or your rituals and routines that you know make you feel so damn good. And when these moments start to happen, it's not necessarily a flag that something's wrong. You are probably really excited, or you're falling in love, or you're in a really fun stage of your relationship. But something tends to start happening where you can stop dating yourself. And what I mean by this is your focus, your attention tends to go to this other person, this other partner, this romantic interest, instead of also continuing to stay connected to yourself. And believe me, I'm not saying here like, don't care about the person that you're dating, don't prioritize them. But what I'm saying is Just because you're putting a lot of tension in this new person or in this phase of your relationship doesn't mean that you have to stop caring less about yourself. And this is where we can get into some mindset work that happens in relationships, where we can create this thinking trap, this mindset of either or, right? I have to spend all of my time with this person or doing what they want, or I have to focus on myself and keep my routines and really stay focused at my job. It becomes this black and white thinking that makes us feel like we have to live in these extremes in life. These extremes that we can tend to spend time in might feel fun for a short time, but they're not sustainable. And they end up building resentment, or they end up creating more tension or energy drain, where it becomes really helpful for us to create this mindset of both and. Let's break down what I mean by this. When we're in new relationships or when we're in a specific stage in a long-term relationship, it can just be really common that we start to feel more dependent on somebody else. And what this dependence can start to do is it can create a slight form, or maybe a bigger form, some form of self-abandonment. And when I say self-abandonment, I know this word can feel really negative. Like when I first heard this word, I was like, what? That's not what I'm doing. I had like shame around it. But self-abandonment can be really normal. It is really normal. And we don't have to do it in these big ways all the time, but sometimes it's really subtle. It can be like we're out at a party and maybe I want to go home, but my husband isn't ready yet. And so I am like, okay, we're going to stay and I'm going to kind of like suck it up. Or maybe you made plans with your good girlfriend, and then this new relationship, this guy, this person texts you and they're like, hey, I'm free now. And you end up last minute canceling plans on your girlfriend to go be with this new person. I used to do this one all the time when my husband and I would be figuring out, like, where do we want to go to dinner? I would sometimes just be like, I don't care, like, you choose. But secretly, I had an opinion. I was just trying to be easygoing. And in those small moments, I was self-abandoning my desires to just be flexible and easygoing. In these small moments where we're either shifting plans to prioritize this other person, where shutting down our own desires, our own wants, our own needs of maybe going home and getting sleep that we need, or choosing food in a restaurant or an ambiance that our body wants and needs, to be making the other person happy, right? To be making them our world. And in those moments, we're putting them at the center and we're taking away our own power to really ask ourselves, like, what do I need? What's important to me? And this is where we circle back to this either or mindset that we can get so wrapped up into, this black and white thinking of, I have to like say yes and make them my world and make decisions that fall on them, even though, like, of course, it probably brings us joy to spend time with this person. But in those moments, we're again like letting go of our integrity in these subtle ways. So, one of the ways that we can practice continuing to date ourselves, continuing to honor ourselves when we're in these relationships, again, new relationships or long term relationships, is to have healthy compromises versus self-abandoning. It's to support us in having this both and mindset instead of this either or black and white thinking. And so a healthy compromise allows there to be space for both, allows there to be space for both our needs, the other person needs. Because in this example of, I'm ready to leave this party, but my husband wants to stay, and that feeling that I've had before of like, oh, I have to just suck it up, that is a moment of self-abandonment. And so what does it look like to then create healthy compromise where there's, again, space for both both my needs and both my husband's needs. And so maybe that's okay. I'll wait another half an hour. Does that work for you? Does that feel like enough time for you? And does that feel like a healthy compromise for me that I can still get home and get to bed in an hour that feels good? And maybe he's like, no, like I want to stay, like I don't want to put a time on this tonight. I just want to like be present and play and be with my friends. And maybe at that point, a healthy compromise is, okay, great, then I'm going to take a taxi home. Love you, have so much fun, and I'm going to also take care of myself. In the terms of you have plans with a friend and this new love interest texts you and like wants to see you. And of course, your body's like, yeah, I want to see them. This sounds more fun. This is creating more dopamine and oxytocin in my body than seeing like one of my best friends who I love, but I see all the time. Maybe a healthy compromise is, hey, I'm going to get drinks with my friend instead, and why don't we do dinner after? Or I'm going to have dinner with my friend, and why don't I see you after for an ice cream or for a walk in the park or for a late night movie? My husband and I have been together for 14 years, over 14 years, almost married 8. And I feel like we just nailed something within our relationship this last weekend that we have been dancing around for years. And sometimes struggle in our relationship could be over this topic. So, for instance, this last weekend, we're trying to explore what do we want to do. And we both are a little indecisive and we're both trying to name our needs. And instead of it being my needs over his needs or his needs over my needs and me feeling like I have to abandon what I need and what I want out of a weekend and him feeling like he has to abandon his needs, we were able to come to a healthy compromise of what does it look like for us to do something fun together, do something that we both want to prioritize, and then also have space on the weekend for the things independently that light us up. I know I need way more social time than my husband does, and sometimes he needs more space and wants space to work on his projects and his things, and I want to be out adventuring or I want to be having some girlfriend time. And so we get to navigate this dance together and communicate so that it can be a both and versus an either or. And I feel like for so long in our relationship, we got really trapped in the either or struggle that it would build resentment. And there were moments, I've talked about this on the podcast before, how I recognized I self-abandoned my needs and my wants. And I wasn't able to name it right then, but it was like months, even like years later. And I look back and I was like, wow, I had self-abandoned. And it feels so shitty. And it creates so much resistance and anger and frustration that is just toxic in a relationship. So in this moment, I welcome you to pause and slow down and think about your long-term relationship or maybe this new relationship that's budding or that's been around for a while. And ask yourself, where have there been moments where I have maybe created some places of self-abandonment? And it, of course, is not intentional. Nobody wants to self-abandon intentionally. I want you to know this is so normal that we do it, especially women. We can so get into the pattern of people pleasing and overriding our own needs and wants to be the good girl or to show up as being flexible or to be easygoing. And notice, like, how do I now know as I reflect back that I've self-abandoned? What has that felt like? For me, I have noticed it has felt like this like internal rub, like I can feel the tension where I want to say something, but I don't. And this like part of me wants to speak up and then part of me wants to just stay quiet. Or there's part of me that's like struggling and trying to figure out what I want and need. And so it just feels like something is like rubbing against each other, creating some friction in my chest. So for you, what has self-abandonment felt like in the past? Learning to listen to the signals, the signs of the body is a very helpful way for us to start to recognize when our body's communicating to us and how we can then learn how to choose differently in those moments. Because we can feel a felt sense and then we can be like, okay, what is this? And can we get curious with this felt sense and be like, okay, it's this, it's telling me that there's some tension here. And then you can get curious about the tension and be like, oh, okay, I'm noticing there's a conflict of like, what do I want to do? I want to make this person happy, but I also want to be happy. Right there gets to be the signal that it's becoming an either or mindset. And I welcome you in that moment to zoom out if you're able to and really think about, okay, how can we both have space? Now, within new relationships, and even again with long-term relationships, it is so important to keep dating yourself. And what I mean by that is that it is so important to keep prioritizing the things that bring you joy, the habits, the rituals, the practices that you know keep you grounded, that keep you connected, that keep you feeling strong and healthy. Dating yourself means that you're continually building this relationship with yourself as you're building a relationship with somebody else. Again, it's not an either or. It's not, I'm just building a relationship with this other person. It's to not forget that you are part of that equation. I want to share with you 5 different ways to keep building this relationship with yourself. So the first is to keep those rituals that are meaningful to you alive as best as possible. Meaning if you are in a new relationship and you are spending, let's say, more time in their apartment and you don't have your yoga mat or you don't have your meditation pillow or you don't have the books you like to read, or you still love to get up for that 6 a.m. berries boot camp class that you haven't been able to go to because you're sleeping at their place, or they're a tea person and you're a coffee person and you're missing your morning coffee ritual. Whatever some of your daily staples are that keep you grounded, that keep you connected to yourself, make those a priority. So when your alarm goes off at 5 a.m. or 5:30 to get your butt to a workout class at 6 a.m., and you want to hit snooze because you'd rather just roll over and like be in this dopamine, oxytocin love bubble, there's part of me that's like, yeah, enjoy that. And you get to use your discernment of how important is it for you to go to this workout class? If it's pretty important, then prioritize it. Prioritize that long-term commitment to yourself versus that quick fix of dopamine and oxytocin you get from snuggling an hour more with this person in bed. If you're in a long-term relationship, it's like claim some of that time in your daily routine between work and responsibility that gets to be yours. Maybe it's in the morning, maybe it's midday after work, whatever that looks like in your life. But claim that space to take care of yourself. This is where we also get to be flexible, that it might not look the same, like our morning routine of maybe having coffee in the morning in our own home by ourselves might look different, might feel different if we're sharing that morning space with somebody else. But can you still claim that intention that that's meaningful to you? And then can you also be flexible that it gets to look a little different, and that, over time, maybe you end up building even rituals together. But again, that doesn't take over rituals that connect you back to yourself. The second practice I want to offer you is to keep your people. So what I mean by that is specifically if you're in a new relationship and things are getting hot and heavy, it is so easy. I've been there before, where you drop your friend group because you just want to spend time with this new person because it just feels so damn good. I've gone through, even though my husband and I have been together a really long time, I've gone through cycles where I've done this in my own relationship where I just love being with my husband. He is my best friend. That the idea of spending time with other girlfriends kind of feels like more work. There's been periods where I've dropped staying connected with some of my friends, and let me tell you, it does not feel good. Sometimes there's moments in life where it happens, again, where it's not about being perfect, showing up as a perfect human being, but it does take then a lot more work to get back those friendships if they're still meaningful and still mutually work. This is a reminder that a romantic relationship should add to your ecosystem, not become your entire ecosystem. Right? So you need these other people in your life, your friends, community, maybe people you do hobbies with, people you go to fitness classes with. You need these people in your life. They need to be watered. They need to be cared for. The third practice is one I talk a lot about on this podcast because I really do believe this is an essential part to being centered. This is an essential practice to coming back to our center, is to keep asking ourselves, what do I want? What do I need? And focusing our attention on the I of what do I want, what do I need, is not selfish. It's really clarifying, actually, when we ask ourselves. It's kind to ask ourselves this question because then it helps us show up more clearly in our relationships. What do I want? What do I need versus what do they want? What do they need? Even though these are really important questions to ask somebody that we're dating or somebody that we're in a romantic relationship with, it is not our responsibility to have the answer for them. So for instance, when I talked about a few minutes ago how my husband and I can be in this dynamic of push and pull of what do I want to do this weekend or what does he want to do, I can't be responsible for filling in his answers. And so if my attention is constantly on what does he want, what does he need, I can very easily lose sight of what do I want, what do I need. And so again, there's space for both to be there in a healthy relationship. What I can control is my own thoughts, my own behaviors, my own emotions, my own needs. And so to tune in and ask, what do I want? What do I want now, right? Can we get curious with ourselves, knowing that whatever we want can also change? It's our personal responsibility to then communicate our wants, our needs. Another really powerful practice, the fourth practice I want to share with you to keep dating yourself, is to maintain connection to your intuition. So don't outsource your intuition. Keep feeding your intuition. Staying connected to your intuition, to your wiser, higher self. This is a part of you that knows all, that has this deep sense of self-trust, where it's rooted in your values, where it's connected to your soul goals. And so when you connect to this part and piece of yourself, when you keep that relationship alive, that is going to support you showing up so much more authentically and powerfully in your relationships. I can see happen a lot of the time is that our intuition can get outsourced. When we get into relationships, dating new people and long-term relationships, we can let this part of ourselves get dim or get washed out by other noise. We can start to ask all of our friends what to do and navigate this dance, or we can get lost in TikTok or Instagram listening to things, or we can get wrapped up in ChatGPT's self-affirming advice. So learning how to date yourself and keep this intuition alive look different for each person. And so for me, that comes back to my meditation practice, having some stillness, getting quiet to listen, to feel my higher self. This is where I get more clarity. This is where I have more connection to what I want, to what I need, to a place of self-trust. The more that I'm living from this place, the less I'm leading from anxiety, the less I'm leading from other people's signs and signals and people pleasing. Instead, I'm more deeply connected to myself. So what brings your intuition alive? How do you connect to your intuition? Does she come alive on a walk, in a yoga class, spending time journaling, reading, in nature? This fifth practice is a really big one, because sometimes when we start to date new people, or we're getting more serious with people in our lives, are starting to blend, or maybe we're moving in with people, or again, we're in a long-term relationship, is to keep building a life that you're excited to live. So in relationships, there tends to be sometimes one person that's more the dreamer and somebody who's a little bit more grounded and realistic. And whatever that dynamic ends up being, you both are entitled to keep articulating what kind of life do you want to be living. I feel like there are definitely moments in my past with my husband where I have felt like I put my life on hold, waiting for him to be ready to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm sure vice versa. And it is not helpful or healthy. And so keep prioritizing the things that you're excited to do. And again, that doesn't mean there's not healthy compromise in the relationship, but keep articulating them. Keep acknowledging what kind of life you want to be building, because in those moments where you listen in and then are able to articulate out, whether that's in your journal or out loud with your partner, those are those moments where you're actually building self-trust, which is the opposite of self-abandonment. Those are the moments where you're able to recognize the things that light you up, the joy, the adventures you want to take, the careers you want to go after, the lifestyle you want to live. So keep sharing those, keep naming them for yourself, and keep sharing them out loud. There's this quote that relationships end up being our biggest teacher, and it's so true. Relationships get to be this mirror for ourselves. We get to see our own behaviors, see our own thoughts, see our fears, see our patterns. Relationships really get to be our biggest teacher. And when we're dating somebody, and again, even though my husband and I have been together for years, I like to think we're still dating each other. And so if you're dating somebody in the newer phase, or again, in this long-term relationship, it's not just about finding the right person. It's having this opportunity to keep practicing having a relationship with yourself while you're building this relationship with somebody else. And let me tell you, relationships are going to teach you how to communicate better, how to tolerate discomfort, uncertainty, how to heal maybe some of your childhood shit, the ways that you wanted to be loved or cared for that did or didn't happen, how to build more vulnerability, how to build trust, how to build security within the relationship. Some important questions that I think are helpful to check in with yourself to notice, okay, am I building a relationship with myself while I'm building this relationship with somebody else? Or can I communicate what I need? For years, I realized I wasn't actually able to communicate what I needed effectively. And so sometimes even just saying, can I communicate what I need? Can I tolerate uncertainty in this relationship, right? Instead of letting the anxiety lead of, will he text me back? Is there trust? Do I trust him when he goes out with his friends? Can I enjoy connecting with somebody else? Can I enjoy getting curious about somebody else without abandoning myself? Right? Can there be space for both, like we talked about in the beginning? And then can I let myself be known, right? Can you let yourself be seen in this relationship? Can you open up and be vulnerable? And I believe that relationships change us, right? We get influenced by each other. We get inspired by one another. We learn things. We build skills. And I think there's a difference in building a relationship with somebody else and building one with ourselves, is that can we do it without disappearing into another person? So can we let ourselves change, right? Can we let ourselves grow? But can we let ourselves become more of who we truly are, more of our authentic self instead of this chameleon around somebody else? So if you are in this new relationship or long-term relationship and you are having this felt sense of, am I getting swept away? Can I still feel myself? I welcome you to say to yourself, can I come back? Can I come back to my friends, to my rituals, to my body, to my values, to my desires, to my own life? And may we remember that when we come back, doesn't mean we're alone, but when we come back, can we then feel ourselves live more fully so that we can then actually be present as an individual in a relationship And may we remind ourselves that we don't have to choose between loving somebody else and loving ourselves, right? The invitation, the essence of this whole episode and practice is, can we be with both? So keep dating yourself, take yourself out on a solo adventure, on a night out, do something that connects you back to yourself. Keep these practices alive and know that it's natural to, again, slip away, find those moments of self-abandonment, find those moments where we start to lose ourselves. But can we come back again and again and again? Thanks for being here. As always, if you found this episode helpful, insightful, I would love to hear from you, your takeaways, what you're excited to practice and integrate into your life. Reach out to me on Instagram at OneWade or send me a note linked in the show notes. If you are somebody who's interested in taking this work a little bit more deeply and wanting support to come back to yourself, I have 3 coaching spots opening up this fall. So if you're like, ooh, I'm curious to learn more, or I need this in my life right now, reach out, schedule a connection call, and we can explore if working together is a fit and ways that you can come back to yourself, stay in your body, stay connected to your own voice, your own intuition, so you can have that self-trust to live life more intentionally. Thanks for being here as always, and until next time, stay centered.